Welcome to the Liberty UA channel. Today we are joined by Denis Yelysevych, an entrepreneur and political figure. Welcome, Denis.
Hello?
Please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, leave us comments, share our videos, and also subscribe to Denis's channel.
So today there was a strike on St. Petersburg in Russia. What happened? Zelensky says that this is the successful work of the security service of Ukraine and the defense forces.
There is an economic forum taking place there. The Russian elite has gathered. They are planning what they will do, what victory means for them, how long they will fight, and what kind of victory it will be for them.
They are considering what a defeat would mean for them, and we are demonstrating this strike. On this day, in this place, why? Why are we doing this so officially, so publicly? What do we want to achieve with this? I mean, not us, not Ukrainians, but our government.
Well, it's obvious to show how powerful our defense complex is, our military. We can scare them in Petersburg during this Petersburg Economic Forum and so on. And all this is done with the consent of everyone, well, except Russia. I mean, with the support of partners, everyone is satisfied, everyone I see is making strong statements, and in general, everything is great. You know, well, I won't say that I don't like it. I do like these strikes themselves, but what happens next? You see, when some Western partners come out and talk about how Ukraine is tearing everyone apart, that's only until their family comes under fire. You understand? There will be a response. That's only until their family comes under fire. But ask yourself, how long would Belgians survive under the kind of shelling Ukrainians, especially Kiev residents, live under? Well, how long? How long would any Europeans be able to withstand such shelling? Maybe a month, maybe two. And then they would start putting pressure on the authorities, demanding action. But we have our values, always talking about these values. I just see what people write in the thread, not bots, because there are huge bot farms working there. And not everyone understands that. I can tell the difference there, and I see how all of this encourages and inspires people, especially those who live abroad. So, you know, there's no point in me stating the same fact for the 55th time. This is a time we just have to get through. And honestly, Zelensky and Putin are very similar in many ways by all characteristics.
But to get through it, we don't know how long we have to endure. Putin says he's ready to fight for another 10 years. Not him personally, but that's what they're talking about at this conference. And recently we heard that Zelensky instructed Budanov to end this war. And right now we have very advantageous negotiating positions.
We can't. And none of the speakers so far can find what our advantage is. Maybe you know why Ukraine is in an advantageous negotiating position right now? If this continues until autumn, then we will probably have an even better option among those being offered, and then we will be able to agree on better terms for peace. What does this mean?
You should ask the authorities about that. I don't understand, but I can tell you how they want to present it to society. Like, look, they claim that 40% of Russian oil refining has been destroyed. Well, that's not true. It's not 40% at all, unfortunately. It's much less. Besides, it's not destroyed irreversibly. Well, let's say 20% has been destroyed as of today. In 2 months, it'll be 5% moving on. You see, they all think, just think about it yourself. It's an ocean, Tatiana. We know very well who he is, Putin. All Ukrainians, I think, already know very well who Putin is, and Europeans too. And do you really believe that he'll get so scared by the shelling that he'll come out waving a white flag and shout, okay, guys, I surrender? That's clearly not going to happen. Besides, there's already proof. I've always told you, and in other interviews too, when I was asked, will it be effective to bomb him, to destroy the economy? Will that somehow push him to end the war? I said, he won't have anything to eat, but he'll keep fighting the war. I'm reading Bloomberg. Bloomberg reports, Putin has already given the order to cut other budget items, very serious ones, and some of them I think are even social spending, just to continue the war. This is the Soviet Union, and it will always be like this. But I would like us to be the side of absolute good against the side of absolute evil. That's how they're trying to present it to us. Zelensky is no force for good. And of course, unfortunately, as often happens, I can already see it. I will certainly do everything I can to prevent it, but I can already see it. How history will be written, and you understand, Zelensky is hiding behind the military. Well, there's that old joke, they steal, but for the sake of victory. I just look at it, you know, Tatiana, I just can't believe how the world has come to this. Because after all, when I was growing up, and probably you too, you know, there was Churchill, a clear hero, and some other figures like that. But now everything is so blurred. They're even making Zelensky into some kind of hero, saying he's the leader of the free world. Yesterday I read something. One Republican, but not really pro-Trump, a senator, I think, he writes that Ukraine is the leader, not Zelensky, but Ukraine itself is the leader of the free world. You read this and look at it. Have you ever lived in Ukraine? Do you even know what's happening in Ukraine? That's why, Tatiana, and people who are watching us from outside Ukraine will confirm this. Then I opened the news, really, just opened the news without understanding a thing. That's about how I read about Syria, when there was active fighting there. So I opened it, and there it is. Chemical weapons, America bombed a Russian base, all that stuff. It all seems obvious. When you experience these events, like I did during 8 months of war with my family and friends still there, many viewers have been living under rockets and drones from the start until now. And look, compare the news and all of that. There's no real power because then Mark Rutte started chirping, the NATO Secretary General. I honestly just can't believe these statements. I'll repeat, how long would Mark Rutte or his family endure such shelling? 15 minutes. And Ukrainians have been living like this for years, so to say that Zelensky allowed Putin to hold a parade on May 9th, of course, sounds nice and looks impressive. But it only emphasizes that our lives don't matter to anyone. We're just a tool in this situation. That's the whole story. They don't care about Ukraine or Ukrainians at all. Guys, you're dealing with important issues led by one madman against another madman. We'll applaud you. Go on.
As always, I want to ask you, we don't agree with this. So what should we do? It's the same thing every day. This morning we had a broadcast. A human rights activist was our guest. I asked him, what should we do? He says nothing because we have no way to influence the authorities. There's nothing we can do. What can we do? This means accepting the current situation because the Constitution doesn't allow elections. The Constitution can't be rewritten. A referendum can't be held. That's it. There's no way out. When you make predictions, I somehow thought that you had some information and were projecting how people would behave. So when you made a prediction a year ago or 2 years ago, they were somewhat different than now. You, I heard, probably expected something from people. And then did you realize that nothing would come of this miracle?
Or not?
Well, now I'll check. As you know, I'm launching merch now. I'll check people's activity for myself personally. I won't ask anyone, like, please, that won't happen. So friends, you have this opportunity to show yourselves, to support everything. We'll count, we'll see. And what should we do? For now, we can only fight in these available ways. If someone thinks this is nonsense, go ahead, show more effectiveness. Unite hundreds of thousands, maybe even around 1 million people around you. Move forward step by step in political activity, if you can even call it that now. And please, there's a big problem, Tatiana, the same one. First, there's no discussion, and second, no one is talking about post-war Ukraine. But that's the most important thing. All these things make me smile. I'll be showing this on my stream on Friday, as always. There are those statements again about the 1991 borders, it's just crazy. I'll repeat for those who missed it. Suppose tomorrow we return to the 1991 borders, let's say that. There, Yermak will be building a dynasty in Crimea. The kind that's already luxurious on the seashore, you know? That's it. That's it. Yermak and his group will take control of the mines and illegally extract resources in Donbas. That's it. And nothing else will change whether it's with the 1991 borders or without them. I know this very clearly. And if you've noticed, I've been hammering this point since 2022. That's not the point. It wasn't me who decided people's fates in a terrible way. It was Zelensky. And Putin attacked Ukraine. And there are these specific last names. And then the only question is how Ukraine will live in those territories, no matter which territories it ends up with. With Donbas or without Donbas? Definitely without Donbas. We control only 8% of Donbas. Do you understand? Definitely not with Donbas. This isn't control over Donbas, and we've forgotten Crimea.
You can clarify that it's excluding Donbas and Kherson.
There's still a point here. Yes. Well, let's say in the middle, let's even discuss it based on today's line of demarcation. We need to talk about this. How will we live from now on? And understand, Tatiana, it's not like it was, say, in 2023 when you had no idea what would happen in 6 months or a year. You were just hoping for something, counting on something. Now it's clear, that's it. This war is coming to some kind of end. And now is exactly the time, so I haven't really stopped talking about this, but actively, what's next? If these things keep happening, I'll tell you openly, if these marches continue under the cover of the security services with Nazi jokes in the city center, then, sorry, nothing will come of it. Tatiana, there is no successful country. Do you know what kind of fascists are in the USA? Marginal trash that lives somewhere in trailers, nobody knows them, they don't know anyone, just some crazies, a bunch of lunatics. If they showed up in Times Square with torches and covered faces, the police would shoot them down in 5 minutes. They wouldn't make it. The FBI tracks them and knows everything. In Ukraine, imagine if the FBI protected them in America while terrorizing Americans. That's madness. That's just madness. Well, that's possible in Ukraine today, and there's no end to it. Look, Korchinsky lives in Kiev. He comes out and says, what did he say? That there shouldn't be elections, right? And there's still a war going on.
To fight.
It's necessary.
It's necessary, everyone is saying now, mostly, well, I don't remember what he said about it, but mostly about the 1991 borders, this mantra has disappeared from the information space. And now it has appeared again, because Budanov says there are prerequisites for ending the war. So it's not clear why we're talking about these 1991 borders and about Crimea right now. They don't have fuel, they don't have gasoline. So we're talking about them, why do we need them now? It sounds strange.
Notice how this trend is returning. We thought it was forgotten, but it's back. Do you know why? It's because we can bomb Russian oil and oil facilities. So when things are going badly at the front, it's like society needs to be prepared. Like, guys, we've lived without Crimea, without Donbas for 10 years anyway. Why are you suddenly making a fuss about it now? When things improve, it feels like the 1991 borders again. A great way to whip up the public. But remember, we still need to fight. Draft office fascists will try to grab you. But you see what successes there are, right? It's all for the sake of success. Forget about that dynasty. Be happy, go on, that we hit the factory in St. Petersburg. Be happy, go on, that we hit the factory in St. Petersburg. But the questions remain the same, and there are even scarier things. Recently, Danila Yanevsky gave an interview to Masik. Well, you know, accusing Yanevsky of being a Kremlin agent, well, no matter how hard you try, it just won't work. No matter how hard you try, it won't work. And he said something very true there, that we should forget about Bandera for good. If someone in Lviv and a couple of villages around Lviv needs it, let them have it. But there's no reason to impose this on all of Ukraine or make him and others national heroes. You know what's funny, Tatiana? If Zelensky had lived in Bandera and Melnik's time, his whole family would have been wiped out. And that's it, like a Jewish family, that would have been the end of it. But now he's putting on a Vyshyvanka and wants to rebury Bandera. I didn't finish talking about Yanevsky. Now you check social media and suddenly Yanevsky is the enemy. Moscow scoundrel sold out to the Kremlin. Everyone is cursing him just for having a different opinion, which, by the way, as a scholar, he can back up with documents from the archive. That's just terrible. I have a subscriber. She moved to America with her family from Odessa. I have a subscriber. She had the misfortune to write something in a thread. I just saw it. And they jumped on her, and you know how they address her, like, not he, not she, but the neutral gender, like it. She asks, why are you speaking to me this way? Is it because I disagree? Do you understand? This is the terrible thing that propaganda has done. It's the same in Russia. Exactly the same. Just a tiny bit away from Putin, from the Russian world. You are an agent of the West, NATO, Ukraine. That's it. Basically, you need to be buried. The same exact thing is happening today in Ukraine. So no matter how much Rutte tries, by the way, I used to respect him until I realized that he's sitting on two chairs with one, you know what? No matter what they say, and even some senators and congressmen here in America, it's a crime against people, not realizing what they're really doing in Ukraine by throwing more fuel on the fire. Putin and Zelensky are not different from each other at all. Two dictators who can only rule through force, suppressing any dissent at its root, any kind of dissent at all. That's it, and they can't inspire in any other way, unlike Trump, for example. Or like other American candidates, you have to go and address the people, offer something so that people believe you and follow you. Some kind of proposal. But here it's like, hello, KGB, arrest this one, kill that one, put this one in jail.
And then they say there's this statement that if the people really wanted change, there would definitely be a leader who would support the people and the people would follow that leader. But how can a person go? How can a leader come and know that he will either end up at the front or in prison? That's just unrealistic. Do you think it's realistic or not?
No, that's not how it works. Leaders don't just watch and decide to lead because people want it. That's what Honcharенko does. You see, when I say some unpopular things, starting from 2022, everyone throws stones at me. But today is the 26th and I keep doing it. That's one thing. But someone like Honcharенko waits until it's safe. In 2023 and 2024, he didn't say anything about the TCC. In 2026, it's safe because it's already obvious and has affected almost everyone. And that's the big difference. What's my point? A leader shows himself and people follow the leader. Maybe many, maybe few, maybe there are several leaders. Yes, that's how it works. But it's not like when you've studied the mood of the crowd and say, guys, I'll lead you. That's not a leader. That's a politician, a political opportunist.
People, I'm asking you, please subscribe to our channel. You ask what to do when the war is over. It's very important from an economic point of view what to do.
Key question about the territorial recruitment centers, what they will do and what people should do about them.
These are people who make enormous amounts of money and they make it very quickly and easily. The war ends and they are left without a job. There is an opinion people write on social media that they will simply rob people, again under the pretext or cover of the authorities and maybe even without their cover anymore. So what do you think? How can this group, his group, be disbanded and what should be done with them?
You take a piece of paper, a pen, and if you have the authority, you shut down the TCC. Properly. You conduct all the investigations. But you understand no one is going to conduct any investigations because it's clear that the TCC guy is just following orders from above. And the head of the TCC is specifically carrying out what he was told from above. And that person is doing what he was told from above. And there's only one person to blame here, Volodymyr Zelensky, who allowed this stupidity and lawlessness to happen in Ukraine. Where will the TCC guys go? Of course, there will be some kind of mob justice. I'm not calling for it. I want to emphasize that right away. I'm just predicting it. They wear balaclavas because they know they'll have to walk these streets after the war. Those who earned more will definitely leave Ukraine. The wealthiest are already buying property abroad. Some will become titushki, as they'll be in demand if Ukraine stays in this situation. Titushki. If Ukraine keeps staying in this swamp, titushki will be in demand, and some will become titushki. That's it. Some will try to pretend they weren't involved in this. You know, Tatiana, it will be different for everyone, as it always is. Nothing will happen. It's just that the whole question is about all this horror. You know, what struck me was what people told me about the metro, about those tents, that there were almost fights for every square centimeter. I sat down and thought about it. Just imagine the state of those people living like that. And all of this was for nothing. God willing, as many of them as possible will survive. But all of this was for nothing. What happens next? That's the most important thing. I want to emphasize once again, if these guys are allowed to legally walk around in those balaclavas, with those torches, under any slogans, heroic or historical, to intimidate someone and immediately declare that this is where the power is, not here, and your proposals, your country won't matter, nor will your actions or your competencies. There will be a country. No, there will be a state. There will be some of these things, or they will continue. You saw again now new conversations like these, and now they say we need to take passports from the Highlanders, kick them out again. All right, just give us a proper law. Let the Verkhovna Rada pass it. So you hand in your passport, and that's it. You're no longer liable for military service. You leave. The border is open, and that's it. Let those who silently or willingly support this ideology stay. They'll raise their hands. No questions asked. But when you bastards have trapped people and these talking heads of Goebbels / Zelensky come out and feed people this nonsense, am I supposed to say, yeah, guys, this is good, this is right?
If the territorial recruitment center turns into thugs, or is it more likely when the military comes to power, like if there are elections and say someone from the military comes to power, what is Andriy Beletsky saying today?
The Russians need to be forced into a complete zugzwang so they can't move anywhere except back to the Russian border.
And only this will become a good foundation for serious negotiations and a real peace. We've heard that this is one of the candidates for president of Ukraine. How would you comment on that?
No, Tatiana, neither the military will be elected president nor to parliament. They'll be included in the list selectively, just like it was after the ATO, selectively. But for there to be something like a military party, people are so tired, Tatiana, people have figured things out. These bot farms, you know, you released an investigation about this, Lakin.
I don't know.
Did you see it or not? At least people were shown how these bot farms work, that it's all about money, projects, people. It's all such filth, such crap. So, despite all this, millions of dollars are being spent. I'm telling you right away. People understood everything. People don't want this. And people in Ukraine will never allow this. Not because they don't respect the military, they do, but everyone knows exactly how Ukrainian soldiers compare to average men. And as for how a politician looks when he puts on a military uniform and how he made money from this war, people know that too. Regarding Beletsky's statement, I saw it. But have you ever heard me come out and tell Beletsky or any other soldier at the front how they should fight? I deal with political issues. And Zelensky says that Trump told us we don't have any cards, but we actually do have them.
And so,
As you correctly said, you need to create good conditions, then there will be grounds for negotiations. How does he know this? Does he understand politics? Does he have these competencies? I don't teach him to fight or tell him what to do while I'm not on the front lines. But they make such statements, well, okay, let's see how it ends. You just need to understand one thing. If someone thinks that the war can be ended along the current line of demarcation, well, I would like that too. Based on what I know from the outside, I don't see that as an option.
but we still don't fully understand what the requirements are. I mean, we knew that we had to give up Donbass. You and I discussed this last time on air.
It's enough for me to leave it.
Withdraw the troops like you did in other regions. Yet for some reason, withdrawing from Donbass is impossible. No one explains why it's different. But the situation is that Peskov said yesterday that the troops also need to be withdrawn from Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. So from there as well, these are not occupied territories. But of course, it wasn't Putin who said this. It was Peskov, roughly speaking, the press secretary. But maybe Russia's appetites are growing.
Or is it just an empty statement? What do you think?
It's the same as always. Russia didn't start doing this now or yesterday. It's acted this way throughout its history, opening with the highest demands and then bargaining downward, exerting pressure in order to achieve real goals at the negotiating table. The KGB made this clear. Commenting on Peskov is like commenting on some random Podolyaka, whatever he said. Well, honestly, Peskov will say whatever Russian propaganda needs him to say. Working for the domestic audience, putting on pressure, it's completely pointless. I know what Witkoff and Kushner are talking about at the negotiating table, and that has nothing to do with Peskov's fantasies or those of his audience.
Will they come to us or not? Because people say that in America there is no information that they are planning to come to Ukraine for negotiations again.
They said they would go to Russia, to Ukraine, then we will sit down at the negotiating table, but Zelensky says we will be ready for this in November. So what do you think? When should we expect them, or should we expect them at all after Rutte's statement?
Well, the information I had, I published on Telegram about a week ago about Trump's planned statement, and then the delegation will go to both Moscow and Kyiv. I have no updates on this information. Let's wait another week, maybe 10 days based on the dates I was given. Let's see what happens. The situation with Iran is very complicated there as well. Yeah, that's about it.
The situation with Iran is complicated, and that's why Zelensky says we need to be given licenses to produce Patriot systems, because we need to protect Ukrainian locations. He wrote a letter to Trump, but so far there hasn't been any reaction to this. Ukrainian developers are sounding the alarm. The money from the Europeans for the Europeans will arrive at the end of the month. And that General Vakareshnya and the other company joined forces to create a mass interceptor for rocket projectiles. Their joint drone uses artificial intelligence, which allows us to catch up with the enemy's fastest drones. This is a cheap alternative to scarce air defense missiles. Where can we get the money for this? We need grants and to set up mass production.
I don't know, with money.
I'm definitely not worried about them because I saw a statement from a guy in Iria, I think it's called. He works with drones. In Iria, I think that's a company or organization. And he comes out there and says directly that we need to be sure the war lasts until 2030 because many manufacturers live in fear that the war will end. Tatiana, he says that some manufacturers, clearly referring to himself and others, some drone manufacturers live in fear that the war will end. Here's what matters about this war. It doesn't bother me, and only their own people can work with drones. Only their own people. It's almost impossible for outsiders to get in there. And people are doing business, let them do business. But just saying what I just told you, I don't even want to be involved in this. I don't even want to be involved in this. Time will pass, and unfortunately people will realize that I was right. But that time will be lost.
Now, every day is someone's life, and people want the war to end. It's impossible to get that from the authorities. That's the problem. Here's an update. By June 20, the heads of all enterprises in Ukraine are required to submit lists of all service vehicles to the TCC. If a person who owns vehicles doesn't submit a list of how many vehicles they have, they will be fined 60,000 hryvnias. Why do this? Because the state needs to know how much equipment businesses have for the needs of the front. So if some unforeseen situation happens, these entrepreneurs have to provide their vehicles. Do you think it's worth putting even more pressure on entrepreneurs like this, and will it actually have any real effect?
You know, when the war just started, I was actually involved with transportation. The war started and there was this one driver, the beginning of the war, damn, it was the beginning of March, I think. It was early March the 10th, we had just recovered after the war. Do you know what that was? First day of work, mid-March, first day of work after they told the entrepreneurs, roll up your sleeves, let's go. Well, they did. The very first checkpoint, to the driver, get out of the car, we need your car. And the car is registered to the company. He calls the managers in a panic. They call me. What should we do? I think, damn, I donated some money here. Somehow they were planning to donate 30% of the profit, and now you immediately take away the car they used to make money. Well, what should I do? I sit down on Facebook and write a post. That's how it is. You told entrepreneurs to go out and rebuild the country. We did that. And at the very first checkpoint, they take our car. So, at that time, the Prime Minister, Tegoyu Arestovich, who was just a top star back then, Arestovich enters and is rude to me. He's being rude, kid, acting like a brat. Why don't you go talk to the UN chairman next? So where is Arestovich now? That's how I show everyone. If you get a little power and act that way, you'll quickly get derailed and end up like him, a washed-up pilot. He gives interviews to justify himself and twist things, but people aren't stupid. And why am I telling you this? That's how the government operates. Oh, let me tell you the end of the story. He stepped aside and called the police. And when they heard that the police were coming, thank God other people supported me on Facebook. Big businessmen said, guys, how can this be? And all of this, everything, it's not needed anymore. No, hello, it's not needed anymore. Just go then. And you know, today I'm actually the worst one for them.
This phenomenon regarding shelters is not normal. You mentioned that people are outraged that some people enter the metro and bring inflatable beds, some bring mattresses. People wrote a statement to the Verkhovna Rada, submitted such a petition and said they want a fine of 5,000 hryvnias with confiscation of this property to be imposed. That is, someone enters the metro with such property. The metro has become a shelter for saving lives, a space where people seek safety.
Why do you think these people are appealing to the Verkhovna Rada with such a request?
People, even with children, who have such property shouldn't be let into the basement so it can be confiscated. There are no questions for the authorities or Zelensky. He built, for example, well, maybe not him, but Yermak, we know, built mansions. Do you know how many new shelters have been built in Kyiv?
Well, look, there are 4 houses there, Zelensky's house, Yermak's house, Mindish's and Chernyshov's. So, regarding shelters for Zelensky, we've already talked about this a bit today. That's exactly the problem, immediate fines. People, you see, they're doing the same thing as always. The urgent issue is gone. I know this firsthand. Come on, let's throw it in so they start fighting among themselves. And if people had brains, both sides, like Ukrainians, would come out and say, what the hell are you doing? Don't you want to build a shelter? Don't you want to set something up as a shelter? Don't you want to make any other suggestions? No, they just tell you to think a certain way, and someone finds someone else. So people keep fighting over this, you understand? That's how everything works here. That's how everything works here. Tatiana, when things are managed like this, what else can you expect?
Well, it looks very strange when we get so much money for energy saving for frontline needs. We don't have any shelters. And the question is, why hasn't the Verkhovna Rada created laws and officially defined what can be considered a shelter and what cannot? But the question of why there are no shelters is not being raised. Right now, they are, so to speak, preoccupied with education. They say that very few people in Ukraine are enrolling in educational institutions. Why? Yulia Hrishina says it's because it's hard to pass mathematics. They want to apply to foreign institutions since admission only requires language and history exams. Now they want to remove the math requirement.
The mandatory subjects should be history and Ukrainian language.
There's hope that applicants will come. Do you think this will help?
Yes, this is a madhouse. I saw a video that was posted about the recent Last Bell celebration, where the girls are dancing the waltz by themselves. That's it, there's nothing else. What math? Who is she trying to convince? I don't even know who she is. Who is she trying to convince? There are no kids left, no graduates. Everyone is running away because nobody wants to see torchlight processions. Nobody wants to fight in the subway for a tent just to have a place to spend the night. Nobody wants to watch Zelensky's daily video address. Tatiana, am I the only crazy one here? And also, thank you to my subscribers who want to return to Ukraine or just stand for justice. And most people, as I see on social media, just left Ukraine like this and then deleted their Telegram channels. They don't care at all about Zelensky and his video speeches. Their problems are getting their child into kindergarten or school, work, business, and the politics of the country where they live now. They got a mortgage and forgot everything else. And basically, that's probably the behavior of a normal, reasonable person. I'd like to do the same, but it doesn't work for me.
But maybe that's right as long as Europeans are giving shelter to Ukrainian men, because in Europe they've started talking about not giving temporary protection to newly arrived refugees. In Poland too, they're saying that they don't want to give protection to new arrivals from Ukraine or pay them benefits. No.
This was already decided yesterday. That everything will be provided to those who arrive before March 27th. They will be given support.
Yes, and they will extend it to those who are already in Europe. Yes.
That's why those
who are in Europe don't need to worry, even though they might have started to worry. And since in Ukraine there is a type of government where you can't express your opinion, Ukrainians in Europe could organize themselves. And for example, storm social networks bring the problems of Ukrainians to the attention of local authorities. They can speak mostly English, but they don't do it. Is it because they don't care, or are they afraid, in your opinion?
people are busy surviving, life is expensive, they have to work. Not everyone wants to be distracted by this. Some have relatives of conscription age, relatives in Ukraine. Everyone fears retaliation, regardless of faith. When a dissident escapes, authorities target their family and friends, starting a witch hunt. The same thing happens often in Ukraine. And people are just basic. They are afraid, but not everyone. But my supporters are not afraid. Thank you. So we are just talking with you. We ourselves are talking about the majority. The majority is like that. I hope they will be different then, at least when the political process starts. Once the political process begins in Ukraine and an election date is set, Zelensky will no longer be able to act as he is now, no matter how much he wants to.
So, a question for the opposition. Representatives of European solidarity have spoken out. They say that those people who are abroad, especially men, are mama's boys. But tough measures should be taken against them. Their services should be blocked. Their cards should be blocked. And accordingly, they should be pressured in every possible way because they are not going to defend their country. But if the war ends and these statements exist, they are planted in people's minds. Those who take this very seriously in Ukraine, it leads to reconciliation. It can somehow help men from abroad eventually return to Ukraine in the future.
Let's be specific. This was said by the People's Deputy Ariev. People's Deputy Ariev, whose daughter a couple of years ago, while under the influence of drugs, hit or killed a person at a pedestrian crossing while under the influence of drugs. First, he mentioned mama's boys and cherries, saying they don't want to fight. He likely meant Poroshenko's 2 draft-age sons as mama's cherries. Did I get that right?
No, they're asking why he didn't mention them actually, but it wasn't asked on that broadcast. People are now asking about it in the Telegram channel. I think
that he meant Sergei Poroshenko as well. You understand, he's a punk, a scoundrel, a villain. Can others be in the Poroshenko and Zelensky factions? Of course not. They're all scoundrels who are against the people, and all they can do, Poroshenko was the first to come up with this divide and rule. He divided things up with this Bandera, the army of Mavavir, and now this western region will support him. He divided it, and now he rules there. If people figure it out, they'll never go back to that again, because people need to see discussions, debates, the struggle of ideas, like we offer this, and here's that. And people just listen and choose. If one jerk divides things his way and another does it his way, then they claim we're the opposition. What kind of opposition is that? Poroshenko has already admitted that the army still uses Movovira, and Zelensky said it directly. Yes, he said it a long time ago.
But these deputies are in power, and the ones to blame are those who don't go to fight, those who aren't on the front line. Budanov, who has been tasked with ending this war. He also says that now we need to regroup, unite, and figure out who is who after the war. So why point out people who aren't the right kind of Ukrainians? He keeps a notebook listing those he thinks don't love Ukraine enough, making them his enemies. And as for those who avoid service, we'll deal with that after the war. Why would a military person who understands the inner workings of war do this? What's the interest?
He was referring to draft dodgers and people avoiding service.
He said, for those who avoid service, we'll deal with them. And who are you? I don't remember exactly who. And as for draft dodgers, we'll sort it out after the war.
I only heard the first part about sorting things out after the war and uniting, not the draft dodger part. I'll say it again, I've said it before, I won't unite around such a president. And all this the president ordered. How does that look? Hello, Kirill, go finish the war by November. Is that possible? And why not by September, Tatiana? Why not by September? So FirePoint reaches a capitalization of around $5 billion. Is that how it turned out? I mean, it's all nonsense. And people, people really latched onto this November thing. It's psychology. Give them November, 6 months away, as a tangible target. Give them a concrete goal so it's easier for them right now, so they can endure everything we're doing, so they think less about FirePoints, dynasties, and all the rest. But I'll say it again, for me personally, these questions haven't gone anywhere from the agenda. If we're successfully bombing Putin's factories, am I supposed to just forgive everything?
Or we forget all of this and now we rally around the idea of fighting for some reason until November. And you say, because of FirePoint, who do you think will finance it? Because at the end of June, we'll receive 8 billion euros. That is not the full amount, but 8 billion. So we don't see big money for funding.
Where do you think the funding for FirePoint will come from?
No, well, 8 billion, then another 8 billion people don't know, but America gives about 2 billion every month, no matter what Trump says. People just don't know this. Some taxes are still being paid, being generated. They'll find a way. They'll find a way, don't worry. I think the biggest jackpot will be, well, I don't think, since it's all by purpose, those European funds. Why did they go after Orban so much, but then gave him that money?
But the Europeans remain unbreakable, so to speak. They stand their ground. For example, Rutte talks about Russians dying, and he urges them not to go fight in Ukraine because they are dying. There's mud, there's dirt, it's all unpleasant, it's all not in their favor. So he's simply urging them not to do it. And he says that right now, the cost of a square kilometer of Ukrainian land for Russians is 167 lives, but no one says how many Ukrainians are dying in the process. We don't know these statistics, and as for the special military operation, how many people are joining it now, we don't know that either.
Will this remain a mystery for us, or do you think those responsible will actually be held accountable?
We'll know the numbers after the war. For the special military operation, 800,000 have joined so far. This is truly a terrible page in world history. When Zelensky stepped down as commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, he wrote a column for a legal journal, and there he said, "We expected, I think, 500,000. If that many Russians died, Putin would stop." That's what all the textbooks say, but it didn't work out that way. And do you know what just happened now? Rutte says he still doesn't understand that Putin doesn't care about people and believes women will just have more children. He understands and knows everything. But the scariest thing is that for Zelensky, women will give birth to more too. And so it turns out that we expected Putin to grind down so many Russians and then he would stop. And Putin was waiting for Zelensky thinking, how many of your people have I killed? How many lives have I ruined? How much can you endure? And he's still holding on. That's it. 2 cannibals are destroying people.
And this deadline they're talking about until November. So you don't really believe in that prospect?
I want to say once again that the war is on a downward trend. The war is winding down. It will definitely end soon, but November is just made up, just taken out of thin air. It's the most primitive version that would come to anyone's mind. November, like midterm elections, but how is that even connected? The Democrats have been in power for 3 years of war. So what then? No, that's not quite how it works. Well, you know, Tatiana, we react to a lot of things, but this is just an information war. Just an information war.
People are trying to find some rational explanation here and understand when this nightmare that's happening will finally end. Thank you for joining our broadcast and explaining today's events to people. Today, for our viewers, it's June 3rd, yes, and now it's evening, almost 8 p.m. Thank you for being with us. Subscribe to our channel. All the best.
Thank you. See you next time.